Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today we're going to make some modern boom bap right inside of FL Studio. So new school boom bap is all about time stretching and quantization. Whereas in the old school, they could quantize, but it wasn't super on the grid. And that's the main difference. So here we're going to use Serato sample to time stretch and manipulate the sample. So we're using this because it solves a lot of problems that, funny enough, created the sound of the classic hip hop. So let's go to our Discord. It's discord.gg/busyworksbeats. You guys can find a ton of samples in there from classic records. Let's try, let's do a different folder today. Let's do some like, I don't know, let's do some Wu-Tang type stuff. Let's pick a random sample here. Also, we have samples from like J Dilla. So I will show you guys, even if we use a retro sample, that's not what makes something modern or old. It's just the way they go about manipulating the sample. All right, so most of the time when you guys are sampling too, you have two styles of records. You have a drum break record and a record with music on it. So we're trying to find one that has music so that we can add our modern drums. Now I've noticed too that modern boom bap doesn't use drum breaks as much. Not saying they never do, but they use more one-shot samples than they do drum breaks. So let's just go to a different folder here. Clicking on random stuff at this point. Okay, let's use this one because it has like an Alchemist type vibe. So Serato sample is going to be huge in the sample, the modern boom bap sound. Let's hit find sample. And let's. Okay. What we're going to do is move some of these markers. Okay, so now we can change the tempo and it locks to that specific tempo. And that's the difference that they did not have back in the 90s and stuff. This time stretch capability. Let's pitch this up. Okay, so Serato made some cool chops, but I'm gonna make better chops. Okay, let's add this in the background. Okay, let's add this metronome. Let's hit record. Let's go to song mode. You guys can probably hear it doesn't match the tempo. So here's a case where, okay, Serato did not perform very well with the time stretch. Okay, so in this case, what I like to do is I like to take it off sync mode and just do it by ear in this case. But Serato usually does this very well. I'm not sure why I just messed up on this record. So we're gonna manually listen to the metronome. Now what it does do though is warp the individual points in the audio. So even though it sounds like it's not synced, there's micro warps and micro adjustments. Okay, so let's speed this up manually here. Let's type in 92. Oh, not 922, 92. Okay, so it's just a little slow, so we're gonna go up in increments of 10 BPM at a time. Okay, so that's a little too fast, so let's pull it back to 98. So see how we gotta find that perfect lineup. So about 90-ish. We're almost. So it's somewhere between 95 and 94. Now this is a great teaching moment too, because back in the day, they didn't have perfect tempos. Okay, so I'm not sure why it stuttered there. Okay, so let's quantize these notes. So again, the modern new boom bap is quantized most of the time. So I'm quantizing these notes, hit Control Q. So older music is not going to be perfectly quantized. And at the end, there's like a little blip. So what we'll do to prevent that is just grab the end of this audio, hit Alt and left click and just make it shorter. Yeah, there's no visual way to do this. So we just want to cut off just the tail end so it doesn't have that little blip of the next transient. Now I'll show you guys how to perfectly do this. So we can right click, consolidate this to audio. And another cool thing we could do in modern boom bap that we can't do in old boom bap, if you use Serato sample, you can isolate different instruments or remove instruments completely. For this sample, I actually like everything in it. But if you wanted to, you could remove the bass, the vocals, the drums, or the instruments in the background. And you could just solo that, which you could not really do easily with old records. Let's consolidate this to track start. And the reason we're doing this is because we can visually see that gap at the end here. I'll show you guys how to work around this. Grab your slice tool, hit shift, left click. Before we do all this though, let's double click. Let's make this stretch mode. And we need to now chop this ending here. So let's change the snap to grid to like a quarter beat, something that has vertical lines that we could actually see what we're doing here. Now, my ear wants to hear this on beat, so let's hit Shift Q, or excuse me, Shift Alt, left click, and we're gonna grab the pencil tool. Let's hit Alt, left click, and drag this transient so it lines up with the grid. So I'll show you guys how to fix these little things. So what we're gonna do here is go in the top left, make unique as a sample, click in the top left, go to make unique as a sample. So now these are completely different files from each other, and they will time stretch differently. Actually, I need to redo this chop because I changed the ending here. Once I cut that little blip off the end, we need to make it unique as a sample again so that it does not have the ending information inside the sample. Okay, now I also need to cut that, but before we could do that, just double click over here, and then we could left click, or we could just right click to select the amount of bars. It looks like 1 bar. Okay, so it's not 1 bar completely, so it's more like, okay, so now we've filled in that little time discrepancy right there. Okay, so I showed you guys how to fix this little blip at the end where it just goes off. So now that we have everything lined up to the grid, we could hit Shift, left click to do a vertical slice. We need to make this sample unique. Okay, but before we do that, let's slice off the ending here. Shift Alt, right click to get rid of the silence. And now we're gonna go in the top left here, make unique as a sample. We need to double click, and now we can just left click this to line it up. Now, if you wanna get more particular, you can go in the top left where it says audio clips, grab this little left right arrow and go in and manually hit Alt and try to line that up perfectly to the grid. So now it should time stretch to fill in this gap. Okay, so now everything's perfectly looped and lined up to the grid. So that's what modern production can do, is really utilize that time manipulation, whereas older records cannot. But that's part of the sound, is trying to figure out how to get stuff to line up when it doesn't. So what I'm gonna do is send everything to the mixer. We're gonna group the samples into one group called a sample. Now here's an older way to approach beat making, which is to group all of your tracks into, let's do this. Create a beat mix channel here. We're gonna hit Control, left click, highlight all of your tracks, right click, and route to this track only. Okay, so I need to reroute the samples because I just rerouted them. Okay, now we're gonna take all of the non-group tracks and turn them down in volume from using the fader here. So we're gonna turn these down. Let's do like -9 dB, -10-ish. We're gonna go to the beat mix, and this will help you guys add more dynamic to your tracks. We're gonna actually boost 9 dB so that we are compensated for the volume difference. But what we're going to do now, which is more of a retro technique, is ensure that we have dynamic in our beat. A lot of people do not have dynamic in modern boom bap. And so this is one way to kind of bring back some of the old technique, but still keep it sounding modern. Okay, let's see if we can find any other chops. So for this, what I might do, because I like the main sample, I'm gonna take out the bass and the drums so that they don't clash with the sample. So Serato is the best tool for this, and it just takes a little bit of time. So now we can use these like sample chop. So now I'm just gonna add these as if they're a new instrument. So I'm layering, and this is something you cannot do easily back in the old days. Let's turn the metronome on. that little tiny layer. Dun, dun. Makes it feel like a whole new song. Let's find some more samples. So we're taking some technique, but the difference here, again, it's so subtle because I have to show you guys older stuff. But if they wanted to do this back in the day, they would have to filter the vocal, which got rid of all the other instruments, but you would still have a presence of the other instruments, so it wouldn't be as clean. So cleanliness, if that's even a word, clarity, is a feature of modern boom bap as well. And that's why sometimes it's a struggle to get your songs to sound gritty, is because everything's super clean and wide. Okay, so we're just adding little jabs here and there. Now remember, we can quantize these, so let's hit Alt Q to quantize. And again, that's going to be the main difference. We're not using as much swing nowadays as we would in the 90s boom bap. So the swing is in this channel rack right here. And you'll hear that more so when we get to the drum section. Let's see if we can find some more chop. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so one thing we need to do in Serato is turn on what's called polyphonic mode so that we can play multiple chops at once. So now we're making it a whole different song. Let's see if we can find some more chops in here. Okay, so I think we found all the chops. Now let's start adding our drums. So again, the difference here is we're going to go for mostly cleanly. I'm saying this so backwards. We're going to go for clean drums most of the time. And that's because of just how modern recording technique has improved. And people try to stay away from multiple samples. If they're going to use a sample, it might be one sample, but not like 10 samples in one. It's just hard to clear those type of records anymore. Okay, so we're going to use some drum breaks here. And we need to find drums that match the timbre of the song. So I've noticed more modern boom bap uses a darker tone for the drum, not so much a bright sound. So this might work here. Now because this is so slow, we could chop this up into one shot. So let's open this up and slice. Now, normally, again, they might just drag and drop a drum break and just add the slip tool to create changes. But because this is so slow, I'm not sure this will match. Let's just see, though, before we guess. Let's make this stretch mode. We're going to left click and drag this in, assuming the drum break is perfectly looped. This might work. So there's a couple changes I want to make. So what we are going to do is grab the slice tool, change your snap to grid to like 1/2 beat or 1/4 beat. And anytime I want to change, we're going to make a slice in the audio. So right here, I want this to be a kick. Now I still want that to be a hi-hat. So what we can do is grab a ghost kick. We're going to hit Shift, Alt, left click here. We're going to grab this kick. We're just going to hit Shift with our pencil tool and just drag it to line up with this. So we're not changing the original drum break, we're adding to it. And I want to get rid of this first kick, so let's swap this out. So we're going to hit Shift, left click to do a vertical slice. Now we're going to grab what's called the slip tool in the top left, this little left right arrow, and swap it out for something else. Okay, so we're going to do the same formula. And so let's see. I'm just going to chop this part out and just duplicate this. Control B is latch paste, so make sure you have perfect slices at the end. At the bar. And then we're gonna copy this kick over, hit shift. I like to visually do it in the playlist unless it gets really chaotic. Okay, so now we can make these little micro adjustments, and we're just gonna turn down the clip gain for that second kick and just repeat that. One thing I don't like is that open hi-hat over top of the kick on the downbeat on the second run. This kick right here. So let's grab this slice tool, hit shift, in this case alt. Actually, yeah. And then we're gonna grab the slip tool, just left click to find a different kick to start that. And then we can hit alt left click to change that starting time. So that's the swing. So we're not going boom, 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 boom. That's more of a 90s bounce, like old school. Okay, so now we need to process the drums and kind of add any other instruments that we think are going to be a vibe for this. Now the modern kind of instrument selection, if you're going dark alchemist style, is going to be a Celeste bell. Any organ sounds you guys can find. So let me show you guys some secret sauce here. We're gonna send the drums to the mixer. We're gonna load up a plugin called Genome. Inside of Genome, you have to buy what are called NAM profiles. And these are basically modeling analog outboard gear, okay, using their process. We're gonna turn all these off. I don't know how to default this, so that's what I do. Click here. Let's get an amplifier codecs. We're gonna make this stereo so that it can read the entire stereo image of the beat. Turn these enhancers off. And now we need to load what's called a NAM profile. So you buy these off the internet from different companies. I like Analog X and Past the Future reverbs. My favorite though is Analog X for consistent processing sound. We're gonna load up the Analog for Life pack called the 4K console. I believe it's the SSL if I'm not mistaken. So now we can push our drums as if it's going through an SSL console, which you cannot do with plugins. That doesn't sound the same. So now we're just gonna push the input to really drive the signal here. So I like the SSL. Let's also try the Zulu, which is like a tape emulation unit. Hear that crunch? So now the drums are really smacking, and that's what's gonna give it that modern touch. The drums are a little bright in my opinion though. And also we need to level this down. Okay, let's take off some of the high end though. A little too bright with the hi-hat. So we're going for more of a dark tone, so we're gonna make that hi-hat a little more subtle. So let's do a couple things here. Let's just delay some of these, let's time shift some of these Serato sample hits. So it fits in the pocket a little bit more. We could do the same thing with the sample, but let's just leave it. Okay, so what we'll do when the beat builds is simply filter out the sample. So I gotta figure out where the sample is here. Make sure these are sent to the mixer. So it says channel 8, 14, 12, and 13. Okay. So we need to group these into the sample group here. I think these are all pretty much the sample. Okay, so for this sample group, we can add a simple EQ and just add a high shelf. You could do different filter types. We're just gonna take the high shelf and just pull it down. Similar to a low pass filter, but it's not truly a low pass filter in the same sense. We're just muffling the top end here. Let's right click, create an automation clip on the mix level. Change your snap trigger to a bar to keep this easier. Turn this off. 0% means that the filter is off. 100% means that the filter is on. Now we're just going to adjust some of the timing issues, if any. Now, what we can do, which is unique here, we could take Serato sample chops that we have and run them through different effects. Like reverb, for example. So we could set up another send. Let's open up some reverb. Let's just open up a Valhalla vintage verb with the Hall verb, and let's send the Serato chops over to the reverb. So now we can distinguish the difference between the ad-lib chops and the main chop. And we can also add more effects if you guys want. Let's see here. Where is the, I always forget the name. The EP34 tape echo. Pretty cool sound here. So I'm going to automate that because that sounds pretty cool. It's making it more of a texture than a sample hit. So I like that tone. See what happens if we nudge the sample a little to the right using the slip tool. I think you can only slip to the left, so in this case we have to use the pencil tool, hit Alt. Have that sample kind of fit in the pocket. You really have to use your ear here. Let's pull it back just a little bit. Now it's more in that pocket. The simple way is just listen to those chords. Dun, 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 dun. You want those to fall where the drums hit. Now we have to make sure we slice off the excess so it doesn't overlap. Let's try a different drum saturation here. Let's try the SSL. I like the sound because it doesn't sound as crunchy. Let's try different units here. We have compressors, we have all types of stuff. Let's try out. I don't think we want a compressed sound on this one. We're going for like saturation. So I think these are a little too crunchy. Let's keep it at the SSL. I like that sound. Sounds heavy without sounding too crunchy. Okay, so now we need a bass line. Let's add some instruments in here. So I'm just going to use now modern boom bap. They might not use the typical soul bass. It just depends. There's no like rule for this, but basically in Trillion, there's a Trilogy old school bass. It sounds really good. And then we have also synths. So if you're going Hit Boy type modern, you might want to use some more resonance type basses like this one. I think I like the sound for this. Let's record this. with the computer. It kind of stuttered for a second, so we got to do that again. Okay, so now we have the sound. We can go in and add more resonance. That's more of a Hit Boy technique. He just adds a lot of resonance. Just depends on how you guys wanted to sound at this point. Let's add some chorus. Make it a little bit wider. So this is a difference in the modern versus old school boom bap. See if we can add a little release. Pull back some of the chorus. I like the chorus, but let's just pull it back a little bit. So I like that tone. So instead of boo-doo, I'm gonna do doo-doo. Instead of redoing that, we're just gonna pull this fifth down to C instead. That'll just give me the tone I want. All right, we need to highlight these notes. Hit Alt L. Actually, let me think of a better way. Let's just use the script here we downloaded from the Image Line forums. Remove overlaps. I don't know if I like it now. Okay, so with this type of bass, you have to kind of use your ear, because just because you're playing the right note doesn't mean the filter lands on the right note. So I have to do this by ear. It needs to be down, down. Let's make sure too this is tuned. Sounds flat. Sorry for the clicks and pops, but we're at a low buffer here because we're recording. Just be aware that a filter can override the notes you're actually playing because of the resonance. It adds another tone. You get different harmonics there. Also, you can sidechain that bass to get a little more push-pull. For now, we're not going to mess with that. Let's pull back some of these effects. Let's see if we have any sounds like this. Let's try different tones. This one's cool. This needs more resonance. That one's just a little more kind of like, I don't know. Let's just stay with the one we had. Okay, so let's add some more reinforcing instruments. here, I might use my actual keyboard to preserve the resources here. So let's see if we can add some piano. Let's take out these hits during this part. Let's only use the turnaround. So here, I guess now that I have the bass, I can hear a double kick. So let's go back to the quarter beat timing and let's add another kick in here, hitting shift. So now we have that. So here the kick that doesn't line up with the drums. Okay, so instead of redoing that every single time, we're going to take that first part and just duplicate it. All right, let's run this back. All right, let's just mess with the piano, see what we can come up with here. Let's add this rhythmic piano in here. We'll come up with a different thing there. So just add that top line. Let's see if we can find some chords. Let's add these chords for more reinforcement. We're just playing C minor and then B flat. So I'm gonna run that back. So I'm gonna play C minor and then G minor. Let's try a deeper octave. Okay, so 2 simple chords, the tonic and the fifth there, really simple. So I think we have everything. Drums are a little bit heavy. Let's pull them back just a little bit. We could probably use, let's see if we can add some more texture type sounds in here, like a Celeste bell piano. Let's do keyscape. I think this has one in here. You could also find this in Expand 2. It has one of these. So I'm just going to go up and down the scale playing these. All right, y'all. The CPU can't handle the amount of audio, so we need to up the buffer length here. It might be the plugins though. Before I even do this, let's make sure it's not just that genome, the genome processing. Let's turn that off temporarily. I think it's just that before we start messing up. Or it could be UAD plugins. Sometimes they cause delay. Let's see. So I recorded all the way through as if I were recording a real instrument. So on this Celeste, we could leave it as is, or we could run it through that tape echo. And what else do we need to do here? Tape echo. I think I have this already on a channel. Let's try running it through, save some resources. Let's run it through channel 9. It's hard to hear though, so let's do both. See how much energy we lose with that drum? Let's turn the effect back on. That just shows how important mixing is, because the drums were like silent before that plugin. Some of the timing could be better, but could also do is add some Pan Man to this. It's one of my favorite plugins. Learned about this from Dante from the They group called They, one of my favorite R&B duos. And I just like the panning on here. So we're gonna pan out the echo sound effect, just so it has some motion there. Let's see if we can add any more sounds in here. I think we're done with the sounds though. Let's see if an organ will fit. It probably won't. Let's just try it though. I forgot we could just turn off the drum plugin and record in real time. So let's do that. The drums lost so much energy. That's crazy. Okay, let's see what this organ sounds like. I think the preset I like is called, I always forget the name of it. Hopefully I can remember. Let's just use this one. It's not the exact one I want. It's hard to hear this organ. I'm gonna turn it up only because I can't hear it. Debating how I want to play this organ too. So we're just doing note slides up and down the keyboard. Let's just tuck the organ in the background. It's not going to be a main instrument here. You can play blues phrases, but I think it just sounds good there. Also going to send it through the echo. All right, let's start mixing now. so now I'm going to add my pack called Helios at busyworksbeats.com/Helios. This is a Serum 2 pack for Serum 2, and I'm playing on a time delay. That should add to the groove. We're going to add these like textural sounds in here. So now we have a really unique sound. So I played it like an organ, and then I played chords at the end there. Just gonna turn it down a little bit. Now for modern boom bap, what we can do now is make sure that all the audio is time locked. Let's go to Tools, Macro, switch all audio to stretch mode. So I'd recommend you save this as a new copy before you try this step. Now we're gonna slow down the BPM to like 77, 82, something like that. So now it's really, sounds like it's manipulated. Man, I have to redo that whole bass line because it recorded over itself. Let's do that again. So I'm just adding a bass now because I want a different tone than that other resonance bass we have. So at this point, I'm just listening for timing discrepancies. Now let's just mix this a little. So I'm high passing only the mid signal so that the sides still have the depth to it. let's hear this whole mix without any plugins on. Sounds very thin and empty. Here's after. To add even more texture, what we could do is add the transporter plugin. Let's do like a beat breakdown where the drums aren't as heavy. And let's automate some effects. Let's figure out what I want to automate though. Maybe let's automate this sound here. Transporter is a new plugin in FL. Let's go to a tempo mode. Let's switch this timing here. I like to reverse the samples and octave shift them. Because I'm playing high notes, we can have transporter play lower notes in the lower octave. Let's turn it off. 0 here. On is 100%, so let's turn it on for this area only. Right click to add nodes here. Right click. And then move this over, and then right click. So now we're messing with the Celeste. It's a little bright, I might add a filter. So it's a little too much movement when we add it back in. Let's see if we could take out some other element that's moving. let's play this one time through. All right, so that's how you guys make modern boom bap. To get these project files, go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to learn how to make beats like the pros, go to busyworksbeats.com/premium. I'll leave a link below. Peace out, guys.